Imagine finding an ordinary-looking penny in a jar of loose change, only to discover it could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. It sounds unbelievable, but for some collectors, that dream begins with a small copper coin most people would never look at twice. One such coin is the 1968 Lincoln Penny, a coin that quietly entered circulation decades ago and has since become one of the most fascinating modern Lincoln cents collectors search for today. The story of the 1968 Lincoln Penny begins during a unique period in American coin history. The late 1960s were years of major change for the United States Mint. Just a few years earlier, coin shortages had become a serious concern. Americans were saving coins instead of spending them, and the government feared collectors were making the shortage even worse. To address the problem, the Mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins between 1965 and 1967. Officials believed that if collectors could not identify where a coin was made, there would be less incentive to hoard new coins. But by 1968, conditions had improved enough for mint marks to return. That is where the 1968 Lincoln Penny enters the story. The letter S on the coin stands for San Francisco, one of the most famous minting facilities in American history. In 1968, the San Francisco Mint resumed placing mint marks on coins, making the 1968 penny the first San Francisco Lincoln cent with a mint mark after the temporary suspension period. At first glance, the coin may not seem special. Millions were produced. In fact, more than 258 million 1968 Lincoln pennies were struck. That sounds like an enormous number, and it is. Yet certain examples have become highly desirable among collectors because of their condition, rarity, and unusual characteristics. The design of the 1968 Lincoln Penny follows the classic Lincoln cent style that Americans had known for generations. On the front is the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. This design was originally created by sculptor Victor David Brenner and first appeared in 1909 to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birthday. Above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust." The word liberty sits to the left of the portrait, while the date and mint mark appear on the right side. Turn the coin over and you will see the famous wheat stalks are gone. Since 1959, Lincoln cents had featured the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side. The memorial stands proudly in the center, symbolizing one of America's most respected leaders. Around it are the words United States of America, E pluribus unum, and the denomination 1 cent. The coin itself was made primarily of copper. During this period, Lincoln cents were composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Because of this composition, many collectors enjoy the rich reddish color found on well-preserved examples. Color plays a surprisingly important role in determining value. Collectors generally classify copper coins into 3 categories. Brown coins have darkened over time. Red-brown coins retain some original color. Fully red coins preserve most of their original mint luster and are usually the most valuable. This is where things become interesting. While millions of 1968 pennies were produced, finding one in pristine condition is far more difficult than most people realize. Many entered circulation immediately and spent years passing through countless hands, cash registers, banks, and pockets. Every scratch, nick, and mark reduced their quality. As a result, collectors are willing to pay significant premiums for examples that survived in exceptional condition. Professional grading services use a numerical scale to evaluate coins. The highest grades represent coins with nearly flawless surfaces and original mint brilliance. For the 1968 penny, value increases dramatically at the upper end of that scale. An ordinary circulated example might only be worth a few cents or perhaps a small premium over face value. But a beautiful uncirculated coin can command much more. Some top-grade examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In rare cases, exceptional specimens certified at elite grades have achieved auction prices that surprise even experienced collectors. One of the reasons for these high prices is population rarity. Even though millions were minted, very few survived in nearly perfect condition. Collectors compete intensely for the finest known examples because there simply are not many available. Another factor that attracts attention is the possibility of mint errors. Coin errors are mistakes that occur during the manufacturing process. These mistakes can transform an ordinary coin into a prized collectible. For the 1968 Lincoln penny, collectors often search for double die varieties, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, and other unusual minting errors. While not every 1968 penny contains an error, those that do can be worth substantially more than standard examples. One particularly famous variety associated with this year is the 1968 proof double die cent. Proof coins are special collector editions produced with extra care. They feature sharper details, mirror-like surfaces, and exceptional quality. The San Francisco Mint produced proof Lincoln cents in 1968, and some examples display noticeable doubling in parts of the design. When authenticated by experts, these double die proof cents can command impressive prices in the collector market. Because valuable varieties exist, collectors often inspect every 1968 penny they encounter. A small detail that seems insignificant to the average person could mean the difference between a 1-cent coin and a valuable collectible. Of course, whenever money is involved, counterfeit coins become a concern. If you think you have a valuable 1968 Lincoln penny, careful examination is essential. The mint mark should appear natural and properly positioned. On genuine coins, the mint mark was part of the original die used to strike the coin. Added mint marks often show signs of tampering, unusual shapes, or inconsistent surfaces around the letter. Weight can also help identify authenticity. A standard 1968 Lincoln cent should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. Significant deviations may indicate damage, alteration, or possible counterfeit activity. Collectors also examine the coin's color, strike quality, and overall appearance. Genuine examples display characteristics consistent with official mint production. If a coin appears suspicious, professional authentication can provide certainty. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1968 penny is how it bridges two different worlds of collecting. On one hand, it is a modern coin compared to older rarities from the 19th century. On the other hand, it still belongs to an era when coins were made primarily of copper, giving them a classic appearance many collectors prefer. This combination makes the coin especially appealing to both beginners and advanced collectors. There are also several fun facts surrounding the 1968 penny. Many people do not realize that the San Francisco Mint had a long history of producing circulation coins before shifting much of its focus toward proof coinage. The 1968 cent represents part of that transition period. Another interesting detail involves the return of mint marks after the 3-year absence from circulating coins. For collectors at the time, seeing the mint mark again was exciting because it restored an important part of coin identification. The coin also serves as a reminder that rarity is not always about low production numbers. Sometimes condition rarity matters more than mintage figures. Millions may have been struck, but only a tiny fraction remain in outstanding condition decades later. That lesson has become increasingly important in modern coin collecting. Many collectors search through rolls of pennies hoping to discover overlooked treasures. While finding a perfect 1968 cent is unlikely, the possibility keeps the hunt alive. Some enthusiasts spend years examining bank rolls and old collections. Others search estate sales, flea markets, and inherited coin jars. Every coin offers a chance to uncover something special. The excitement comes from uncertainty. You never know when an ordinary-looking penny might reveal an important variety, a rare error, or a condition level far above average. Collectors also appreciate the historical connection the coin provides. When you hold a 1968 Lincoln penny, you are holding a piece of American history from a period marked by cultural change, technological progress, and significant national events. The coin circulated during a time when people paid cash for everyday purchases, carried change in their pockets, and rarely imagined that a single penny could one day become collectible. Today, the 1968 Lincoln penny continues to attract attention because it offers something for everyone. New collectors enjoy its affordability and historical significance. Experienced collectors pursue high-grade examples and scarce varieties. Error specialists search for unusual minting mistakes. Investors appreciate the strong demand for top-quality specimens. Few coins manage to appeal to such a wide audience. Perhaps that is why interest in the 1968 penny remains strong more than half a century after it was struck. The next time you come across an old penny, take a closer look before tossing it aside. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Examine the condition. What appears ordinary could be hiding an extraordinary story. And somewhere, sitting unnoticed in an old coin album, a forgotten collection, or a dusty jar of spare change, another 1968 Lincoln penny may still be waiting to surprise its owner. That possibility is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Every coin has a story, every date has a mystery, and every search begins with a simple question. What if the penny in your hand is worth far more than 1 cent? If you've ever found a 1971 penny in your pocket and noticed there is no mint mark, you might have wondered if you just discovered something rare or even valuable. Some people online claim it could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But the real story behind this coin is more interesting than hype, and it starts with understanding what you're actually holding in your hand. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins produced in the United States. It belongs to the long-running Lincoln cent series, which first began in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1971, this penny was already part of everyday American life, passing through millions of hands every single day, used for small purchases, saved in jars, and forgotten in drawers. The key detail that confuses many people is the missing mint mark. On most U.S. coins, a small letter shows where the coin was made, like D for Denver or S for San Francisco. But when you see no letter at all on a 1971 penny, it does not mean something went wrong. It simply means the coin was made in Philadelphia. At that time, the Philadelphia Mint did not place mint marks on pennies. So in reality, the no mint mark 1971 penny is the normal version, not a rare mistake. To understand this coin better, we need to go back to the early 1970s in the United States. The country was going through major changes. Inflation was beginning to rise, the economy was shifting, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with everyday demand. In 1971 alone, the Philadelphia Mint struck more than 1.9 billion Lincoln pennies. That number alone already tells a big part of the story. When something is made in the billions, it becomes very hard for it to be rare in the traditional sense. The design of the 1971 penny is familiar to anyone who has seen a modern cent. On the front, you have the portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, originally designed by Victor David Brenner. The words "In God We Trust" appear above his head, with liberty on the left and the date 1971 on the right. On the back, you see the Lincoln Memorial, which replaced the earlier Wheatstock design in 1959. If you look closely at the memorial, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside, which was a clever detail added by the engraver Frank Gasparo. This coin is made primarily of copper, about 95%, with a small amount of zinc and tin making up the rest. That gives it a solid, slightly reddish appearance when it is new, although most 1971 pennies you find today will be darker brown due to decades of circulation and oxidation. Now, here is where things get interesting. Even though the 1971 no mint mark penny is extremely common, there are a few rare variations and errors that collectors look for. These are not normal coins, but mistakes made during the minting process. For example, some 1971 pennies show doubling in the design, known as a double die error. This can sometimes be seen in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust. However, most of these double dies are minor and require magnification to notice. They are not the dramatic, highly valuable type seen in some other famous U.S. coins. There are also occasional off-center strikes, where the design is slightly misaligned, or coins that were struck on improperly prepared planchets. These types of mint errors can increase value, but again, they are relatively rare compared to the massive number of normal coins produced that year. So why do some people think this penny is valuable? The answer often comes from misunderstanding and internet misinformation. Because the phrase "no mint mark" sounds like something special, many assume it means rare. In reality, for 1971 pennies, no mint mark is exactly what you should expect from Philadelphia coins. It does not indicate an error or a limited production run. In normal circulated condition, A 1971 no-mint mark penny is usually worth just 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, meaning it was never used in everyday transactions and still looks new, the value is often only a few cents to maybe a couple of dollars depending on quality. Only in very high mint state grades, such as coins graded MS-67 or higher, can the value rise more noticeably, sometimes reaching tens of dollars. But these top-grade examples are extremely rare because most pennies were heavily circulated. At auctions, most 1971 Lincoln cents sell for very modest prices. A typical circulated example might sell in bulk lots for less than face value when sold in large groups. An uncirculated roll might bring a small premium to collectors, but nothing close to life-changing money. Even verified error coins, unless they are very dramatic or professionally graded in high condition, usually sell in the range of a few dollars to maybe a few dozen dollars. To give a clearer picture, collectors have reported selling nice, uncirculated 1971 pennies for around $1 to $5 each. Some better quality mint state examples certified by grading companies have reached around $20 to $50 in specialized auctions, but those are the exception, not the rule. There is no widely known version of the 1971 no-mint mark penny that sells for thousands of dollars. If you ever come across one and want to check if it has value, the first thing to look at is condition. Coins that are shiny, sharp, and free from scratches are always more desirable. Next, examine the coin under good light. Look closely at the lettering for any doubling or unusual spacing. Also check the edges and surface for signs of minting mistakes. However, even if you find something unusual, it is always best to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service before assuming it is valuable. Another important detail is authenticity. While the 1971 penny itself is not heavily counterfeited, some altered coins do exist. For example, people sometimes add fake mint marks or artificially modify coins to make them appear rare. A genuine 1971 Philadelphia penny will naturally have no mint mark and will show consistent, standard engraving details. If anything looks too perfect or suspicious, that can actually be a warning sign. One fun fact about the 1971 Lincoln cent is that it was produced during a time when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with efficiency improvements. Coin production was becoming faster and more automated, which meant higher output but also a slightly higher chance of small imperfections. That is why error coins from this era are somewhat more common than in earlier decades, even though most are still minor. Collectors are still drawn to the 1971 penny, not because it is rare, but because it represents a moment in U.S. coin history when modern mass production truly took over. It is a coin that almost everyone has handled at some point in their life, which gives it a sense of familiarity and nostalgia. For some collectors, that emotional connection is just as important as rarity. Another reason collectors appreciate it is because it is part of the long Lincoln cent timeline. Every year of this series tells a small part of American history, and 1971 sits right in the middle of a changing economic era. It reflects a time when coins were still made of copper, before the major metal composition changes that came later in the 1980s when copper prices rose and the mint shifted toward mostly zinc cores. So while the 1971 no-mint mark penny will not make you rich, it can still be an interesting piece to study. It teaches a valuable lesson about how coin value really works. Rarity, condition, and demand matter far more than assumptions based on small details like a missing letter. In the end, the 1971 Lincoln cent is a reminder that not every old-looking coin is a treasure, but every coin has a story. Some stories are about massive production and everyday use, and others are about the few rare mistakes that slipped through. The real value often lies in understanding the difference between the two. So the next time you find a 1971 penny with no mint mark, take a closer look. You are not holding a hidden fortune, but you are holding a small piece of American history that passed through a time of change, produced in the billions, and still continues to spark curiosity more than 50 years later. And sometimes that curiosity is worth more than the coin itself. The penny sitting in your pocket right now could be worth far more than 1 cent. In fact, some collectors spend years searching through jars, drawers, and old coin collections hoping to find a single Lincoln penny that stands out from the rest. One coin that often sparks curiosity is the 1987 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. But is it actually rare? Could it be valuable? And why are collectors still talking about it decades after it was made? The answer may surprise you. The 1987 Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins ever produced in the United States. Millions of Americans handled these pennies during everyday transactions, never giving them a second thought. Yet today, people across the country continue searching for them, examining every detail and wondering if they have discovered something special. To understand why this coin attracts attention, we first need to travel back to 1987. During the late 1980s, the American economy was growing, businesses were thriving, and billions of coins were needed to keep commerce moving smoothly. The United States Mint worked around the clock producing pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and other denominations to meet public demand. The Lincoln cent had already been part of American life for nearly 80 years. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. Before Lincoln appeared on the cent, American coins typically displayed symbolic figures representing liberty rather than actual individuals. By 1987, the Lincoln penny featured the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front. This design had become one of the most recognized images in American history. On the reverse side appeared the Lincoln Memorial, a design first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The no-mint mark version of the 1987 penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Many new collectors assume that a coin without a mint mark must be rare, but that's not always true. In fact, during most of the Lincoln cent series, Philadelphia pennies were produced without any mint mark at all. When people see a 1987 penny lacking a letter beneath the date, they often believe something is missing. However, for Philadelphia-produced cents of that era, no mint mark was completely normal. The absence of a mint mark does not automatically make the coin rare. So what exactly makes collectors interested in these coins? Part of the fascination comes from the transition in penny composition that occurred just a few years earlier. Before 1982, most Lincoln cents were made primarily of copper. Rising metal prices eventually made those coins expensive to produce. As a result, the mint switched to a new composition consisting mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. The 1987 penny was made from this newer zinc-based composition. It weighs approximately 2.5 grams and contains a core of zinc covered by a thin layer of copper. To the average person, it still looked like a traditional copper penny, but the metal inside was completely different from older Lincoln cents. The front of the coin displays Lincoln's profile facing right. Above his head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust." The word liberty sits to the left, while the date 1987 appears on the right. Because this particular version was struck in Philadelphia, no mint mark appears beneath the date. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial dominates the design. If you look carefully with magnification, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. This remarkable detail makes the Lincoln Memorial cent one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. Although the standard 1987 no mint mark penny is common, collectors pay close attention to condition. A coin that spent decades circulating through cash registers and pockets may be worth only face value. However, a pristine example preserved in nearly perfect condition can be worth significantly more. This is where the story becomes interesting. Millions of 1987 pennies were produced, but very few survived in flawless condition. Every scratch, nick, fingerprint, and contact mark reduces a coin's quality. Collectors seek examples that appear almost exactly as they did when they left the mint. Professional grading services evaluate coins using a numerical scale. The highest grades represent coins with exceptional surfaces, strong luster, and minimal imperfections. When a 1987 no mint mark penny achieves one of these top grades, collectors become willing to pay surprisingly high prices. Over the years, certified examples in elite condition have sold for amounts that seem unbelievable considering their original value of just 1 cent. Some top-grade pieces have brought hundreds of dollars at auction. The difference between a common circulated penny and an extraordinary mint state example can be dramatic. Another reason collectors search 1987 pennies is the possibility of finding mint errors. Error coins occur when something unusual happens during the manufacturing process. These mistakes can transform an ordinary coin into a highly sought-after collectible. Some 1987 pennies have been discovered with off-center strikes. This happens when the coin blank is not positioned correctly before being struck by the dies. The result is a design that appears shifted, leaving a blank area on one side of the coin. Other examples show doubled features caused by die-related issues. In certain cases, letters or numbers may appear slightly duplicated. Collectors examine dates, inscriptions, and design elements carefully in hopes of spotting these unusual characteristics. There are also coins with clipped planchets, die cracks, and other production anomalies. While most 1987 pennies are completely normal, genuine errors can command substantial premiums from collectors. Because stories of valuable pennies spread quickly online, many people wonder whether every 1987 no-mint mark cent is worth a fortune. Unfortunately, the answer is no. Most examples remain very common and carry little additional value. This creates an important lesson for collectors. Value is often determined not by age alone, but by rarity, condition, and demand. A much older coin may be worth less than a newer coin if millions survived. Likewise, a common penny can become valuable if it possesses a rare error or exceptional preservation. If you want to examine a 1987 no-mint mark penny, there are several details to check. First, confirm the date. Make sure it clearly reads 1987 and has not been altered. Counterfeiters sometimes modify dates on coins to imitate rare varieties. Next, verify the absence of a mint mark. On Philadelphia cents from 1987, no mint mark is expected. If someone claims the missing mint mark itself makes the coin rare, that should raise a red flag. Then inspect the surfaces carefully. Look for original luster, sharp details, and minimal wear. Coins with bright, untouched surfaces are generally more desirable than heavily worn examples. Use a magnifying glass to search for possible errors. Examine the lettering, date, and design elements. While genuine errors are uncommon, finding one can significantly increase a coin's appeal. Collectors should also be cautious of damaged coins. Environmental exposure, corrosion, cleaning, and alterations can reduce value. Some people mistakenly believe unusual discoloration or damage represents a mint error when it actually occurred after the coin entered circulation. One fascinating fact about the 1987 penny involves its massive production numbers. The Philadelphia Mint struck billions of cents that year. Despite these enormous quantities, collectors still search through rolls because rare condition examples are surprisingly difficult to find. Another interesting detail is how quickly zinc cents can deteriorate when their copper plating becomes damaged. Once exposed, the zinc core may corrode much faster than traditional copper coins. This is one reason truly attractive examples become harder to locate as time passes. Many collectors enjoy searching bank rolls for coins like the 1987 penny. This hobby, often called coin roll hunting, involves obtaining rolls of coins from banks and examining each piece individually. Most searches reveal nothing unusual, but every now and then a collector discovers an exciting variety, error, or high-grade specimen. The thrill of that possibility keeps people looking. There is also a nostalgic element attached to the 1987 Lincoln cent. For many Americans, these pennies were part of everyday childhood experiences. They appeared in piggy banks, school fundraisers, arcade machines, and convenience store transactions. Holding one today can bring back memories of a different era. As newer generations become interested in coin collecting, the 1987 penny often serves as an entry point. It is affordable, easy to find, and connected to the rich history of the Lincoln cent series. Beginners can learn about grading, mint marks, composition changes, and error varieties without spending large amounts of money. Experienced collectors appreciate it for different reasons. High-grade registry competition has made top-quality examples increasingly desirable. When only a small number of coins achieve the highest certified grades, competition among collectors can push prices upward. What makes the 1987 no-mint mark penny especially interesting is the contrast between appearance and reality. To most people, it is simply a penny, something to spend, ignore, or toss into a jar. Yet to collectors, every coin tells a story. A story about American history, minting technology, economics, and the countless hands through which it has passed. That tiny piece of metal has survived decades of change. It witnessed the late Cold War, the rise of personal computers, and the transformation of the modern economy. While it may not always be worth a fortune, it remains a small artifact from a specific moment in American history. So the next time you find a 1987 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Examine it carefully. Check its condition. Look for unusual features. Consider the journey it has taken over nearly 4 decades. Most likely, you'll discover an ordinary 1-cent coin. But every collector knows that remarkable discoveries often begin with something that appears completely ordinary. And somewhere right now, hidden in a forgotten coin jar, an old collection, or a roll from a local bank, another 1987 no-mint mark penny may be waiting to reveal a story that no one has noticed yet. The question is simple. Will you be the person who finds it? The most common coin in your pocket could be hiding a secret that many people completely overlook. At first glance, the 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark looks like nothing special. Millions of Americans spent them every day without a second thought. But some of these pennies have caught the attention of collectors, and certain examples have sold for surprisingly strong prices. So what makes a simple 1-cent coin from 1994 worth looking at today? The answer may be hiding in the smallest details. The 1994 Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin series in American history. Featuring President Abraham Lincoln on the front, this coin continues a tradition that began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1994, the Lincoln cent had already become a familiar part of everyday American life, passing through countless cash registers, piggy banks, and pockets across the country. When collectors talk about a 1994 penny with no mint mark, they are referring to a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During that period, pennies made in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark. That means the absence of a mint mark is actually normal for most 1994 Philadelphia cents. While many people assume a missing mint mark automatically makes a coin rare, that is not the case here. The coin was intentionally produced without one. To understand the story of this penny, we need to travel back to the early 1990s. The United States economy was growing, and billions of pennies were needed to support everyday commerce. The U.S. Mint produced enormous quantities of 1-cent coins every year to meet demand. In 1994 alone, the Philadelphia Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents. Because of these massive production numbers, most 1994 pennies remain common today. The front of the coin features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right, surrounded by the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to his left, and the date 1994 to his right. This portrait became historic because it was the first regular circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person. On the reverse, collectors find the familiar Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo. The memorial stands proudly in the center of the coin, with the words "United States of America" across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. This means Lincoln appears on both sides of the coin, a fascinating detail many people never notice. The 1994 Lincoln penny is composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. Since 1982, most Lincoln cents have been made using this composition to reduce production costs. Each coin weighs approximately 2.5 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. Although the copper layer gives the coin its familiar reddish appearance, the metal underneath is mostly zinc. At first glance, none of these features seem particularly rare. After all, billions were made. But in coin collecting, condition can make an enormous difference. A penny that circulated heavily for years may only be worth 1 cent. However, a coin that remained untouched, preserving its original mint luster and sharp details, can command much higher prices. Collectors often compete for the finest known examples because perfect coins become surprisingly scarce over time. One of the most important factors affecting value is color. Collectors generally classify Lincoln cents into three categories. Brown coins have lost most of their original red color through oxidation. Red-brown coins show a mixture of original red and darker tones. Red coins retain nearly all of their original mint color and are often the most desirable. A bright red 1994 Lincoln penny preserved in exceptional condition can be worth significantly more than its face value. Professional grading services examine these coins under magnification and assign numerical grades. The highest grades are extremely difficult to achieve because even tiny marks from the minting process can lower a coin's score. While ordinary examples are common, collectors pay close attention to exceptional specimens. High-grade examples certified by major grading companies have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The reason is simple. Although billions were made, very few survived in nearly flawless condition. Another reason collectors examine 1994 pennies carefully is the possibility of mint errors. Mint errors occur when something unusual happens during the production process. These mistakes can transform an ordinary coin into a highly collectible item. Some collectors search for off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned on the coin blank. Others look for doubled dies, where parts of the design appear doubled because of an error during die preparation. There are also die cracks, clipped planchets, and other unusual production mistakes that can increase a coin's value. A genuine error coin can sometimes be worth far more than a normal example. The rarity and visibility of the error often determine how much collectors are willing to pay. One fascinating aspect of coin collecting is that value often depends on a combination of rarity, condition, and demand. A common coin in extraordinary condition may be worth more than a rare coin in poor condition. This is why serious collectors inspect even modern pennies carefully. Over the years, several high-grade 1994 Lincoln cents have achieved impressive auction results. Certified examples with exceptional preservation have sold for hundreds of dollars, and the finest known pieces have reached well into the thousands. These prices may seem shocking for a coin with a face value of only 1 cent, but collectors are often willing to pay substantial amounts for top-quality examples that are difficult to find. Of course, not every 1994 penny is valuable. Most examples found in circulation today remain worth only face value or a small premium. The challenge lies in identifying the few coins that stand out from the crowd. If you want to examine your own 1994 penny, start by checking for the absence of a mint mark beneath the date. Remember, this is normal for Philadelphia issues. Next, inspect the coin's overall condition. Look for strong luster, minimal wear, and sharp details. You should also examine the surfaces under good lighting. Scratches, stains, corrosion, and damage can reduce value significantly. Collectors prefer coins with clean surfaces and attractive eye appeal. A magnifying glass can help reveal important details. Look for unusual doubling, off-center strikes, or other potential mint errors. If you believe you have found something unusual, consider comparing it with verified examples or consulting a professional grading service. One common mistake involves confusing damage with mint errors. Coins often experience wear and abuse after leaving the mint. Scratches, dents, and environmental damage can sometimes resemble production errors. However, true mint errors originate during the manufacturing process and display specific characteristics that experts recognize. Counterfeiters generally focus on high-value rare coins rather than common modern pennies. Still, collectors should be cautious when purchasing expensive examples. Buying certified coins from reputable dealers helps reduce the risk of fraud. There are also some interesting facts about the year 1994 itself. This was a period before smartphones, social media, and online shopping transformed everyday life. The pennies produced that year circulated during a very different America. Every coin became a small witness to history, passing through countless hands as people bought groceries, paid for gasoline, and conducted everyday transactions. Many collectors enjoy imagining the journeys these coins have taken. A single 1994 penny might have traveled across multiple states, sat forgotten in jars for years, or been saved by someone who noticed its brilliant red color. Each coin carries a unique story, even if that story can never be fully known. Another surprising detail is how difficult it can be to preserve a penny in perfect condition. The copper-plated surface is vulnerable to tiny marks and environmental changes. Coins stored improperly may lose their original color over time. This explains why top-grade examples become increasingly scarce as years pass. For many collectors, the appeal of the 1994 no-mint mark penny goes beyond money. It represents the thrill of discovery. Anyone can search through pocket change, coin rolls, or old collections. The possibility of finding an exceptional specimen adds excitement to an otherwise ordinary coin. Lincoln cents also serve as a gateway into the hobby. Many collectors began by searching through pennies because they are affordable, widely available, and rich with history. A simple 1-cent coin can introduce people to minting technology, American history, and the fascinating world of numismatics. Even experienced collectors continue examining modern pennies because unexpected treasures occasionally appear. A rare error, an overlooked high-grade example, or a beautifully preserved coin can emerge from places where nobody expected to find value. Today, the 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark remains a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Most examples are common, yet certain specimens attract serious collector interest. Whether because of extraordinary condition, a rare mint error, or exceptional preservation, these pennies prove that value often hides in the details. The next time you come across a handful of pennies, take a closer look before spending them. That ordinary 1994 Lincoln cent may seem insignificant at first glance, but hidden within its surface could be a story of history, craftsmanship, and collecting passion that spans decades. And while most will always be worth only a single cent, a select few continue to surprise collectors with their remarkable value, reminding us that sometimes the smallest treasures are the easiest to overlook. Have you ever looked at a penny in your pocket and wondered if it could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people spend pennies without a second thought. But what if one ordinary-looking Lincoln penny from 2006 could attract the attention of collectors across the country? Even more surprising, what if the missing mint mark on that coin made people believe they had discovered something rare? Today, we're uncovering the fascinating story behind the 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that continues to spark curiosity among collectors and everyday Americans alike. The Lincoln penny is one of the most recognizable coins in American history. For generations, it has passed through millions of hands, quietly carrying the image of President Abraham Lincoln. In 2006, billions of Lincoln cents were produced and released into circulation. Most people never paid attention to them. After all, they were simply pennies. Yet years later, certain 2006 pennies began attracting interest because of one small detail that seemed unusual at first glance: the absence of a mint mark. To understand why this matters, we need to go back and look at how U.S. coins are made. The United States Mint produces coins at different facilities across the country. Most Lincoln pennies are struck at either Philadelphia or Denver. Coins made in Denver carry a small D mint mark beneath the date. Coins made in Philadelphia often have no mint mark at all. This is where many people become confused. When they find a 2006 penny without a mint mark, they immediately assume it is an error. They believe the mint mark must have disappeared somehow. But the reality is a little different. A 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was normally struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In other words, the missing mint mark is actually expected. It is not automatically an error coin. Millions upon millions of these pennies were produced exactly that way. Even so, that doesn't mean every 2006 no mint mark penny is worthless. Far from it. The story becomes much more interesting when condition, rarity, and minting errors enter the picture. The Lincoln cent design used in 2006 was part of a long-running series that began in 1959. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln faces right. His portrait had become one of the most familiar images in American coinage. Above Lincoln appears the national motto, "In God We Trust." The word liberty is placed to the left of the portrait, while the year 2006 appears on the right side. On the reverse side, collectors saw the famous Lincoln Memorial design. This design had been used for decades and featured the Memorial Building in Washington, D.C. If you looked very carefully, you could even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It was one of the smallest details ever placed on a circulating U.S. coin. The 2006 Lincoln cent was made primarily from zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition had been used since the early 1980s when rising copper prices made solid copper pennies too expensive to produce. As a result, the coin weighs approximately 2.5 grams and has a bright copper-colored appearance when new. At first glance, there seems to be nothing remarkable about the coin. But collectors know that value often hides in the details. One of the biggest factors affecting the value of a 2006 no-mint mark penny is condition. Most examples circulated through stores, banks, and cash registers. They picked up scratches, stains, and wear over time. These common circulated coins are usually worth only face value. However, when collectors find a 2006 penny that remains in pristine condition, the situation changes dramatically. Coins are graded on a scale that measures preservation and quality. A coin with sharp details, original luster, and virtually no marks can receive a high grade from professional grading services. These top-condition examples are much harder to find than most people realize. Think about it this way. Billions of pennies entered circulation, but very few survived in perfect condition. Most were handled immediately after production. Every contact mark, scratch, or fingerprint reduced the chance of achieving a top grade. Because of this, some exceptionally preserved 2006 no-mint mark pennies have sold for surprisingly strong prices in the collector market. A typical circulated example might be worth just 1 cent. An uncirculated example could bring a small premium. But coins receiving elite grades from professional grading companies can sometimes sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on market demand and population reports. Then there are error coins. This is where excitement really begins. Mint errors occur when something unusual happens during the coin production process. These mistakes can transform an ordinary penny into a highly sought-after collectible. Collectors constantly search for off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and double die varieties. While these errors are not common, they can appear on 2006 Lincoln pennies just as they can on coins from other years. An off-center strike happens when the blank coin is not properly aligned before being struck. Part of the design may be missing, creating a dramatic appearance. Depending on the severity of the error, these coins can command substantial premiums. A double die occurs when design elements appear doubled because of issues during die creation. Letters, numbers, or parts of Lincoln's portrait may show noticeable doubling. Genuine double die coins are especially popular among collectors because they represent true minting varieties rather than post-mint damage. Another fascinating error involves die cracks. As minting dies age, stress can cause them to crack. These cracks transfer onto the coins, creating raised lines that collectors often find intriguing. When a genuine and significant error appears on a 2006 no-mint mark penny, the value can increase dramatically compared to an ordinary example. Over the years, collectors have reported sales ranging from a few dollars for minor errors to hundreds of dollars for more dramatic examples. The exact value depends on rarity, eye appeal, demand, and authentication. One reason these coins continue attracting attention is the widespread misunderstanding surrounding the missing mint mark. Many people search through change jars believing they have discovered a major rarity. In reality, most 2006 no-mint mark pennies are normal Philadelphia issues. Yet that misunderstanding creates an interesting effect. It encourages people to examine coins more carefully. And occasionally, someone does find a genuine error or an exceptionally preserved example that turns out to be worth far more than face value. If you're searching for a valuable 2006 no-mint mark penny, knowing how to identify a real collectible is essential. First, examine the date carefully. Make sure the coin is genuinely dated 2006. Next, check the area beneath the date. Philadelphia-struck pennies from that year normally have no mint mark. That alone does not make the coin rare. Then look closely for unusual characteristics. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Search for doubling in the lettering, unusual strike patterns, die cracks, or other signs of a legitimate mint error. Pay attention to the coin's condition. Is the surface bright and original? Does it still have mint luster? Are there visible scratches or signs of wear? Condition often matters more than people expect. Weight can also provide useful information. A standard 2006 Lincoln cent should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences could indicate damage, alteration, or a counterfeit piece. Counterfeit pennies are less common than counterfeit high-value coins, but altered coins do exist. Some individuals modify coins in attempts to create fake errors or increase perceived value. Careful inspection and professional authentication can help avoid mistakes. One of the most interesting facts about Lincoln cents is their incredible popularity among collectors. Many people begin coin collecting simply by searching through pocket change. The Lincoln cent often serves as the gateway into the hobby. Because pennies are affordable and easy to find, collectors enjoy hunting for varieties, errors, and high-grade examples. The thrill of discovery keeps the search exciting. Another surprising detail is that some of the most valuable modern pennies were once dismissed as ordinary change. Certain rare varieties sat unnoticed for years before collectors recognized their significance. That possibility fuels the dreams of treasure hunters everywhere. The 2006 No Mint Mark penny fits perfectly into this culture of discovery. While most examples are common, every coin invites a closer look. Every penny could potentially reveal an unexpected error or an unusually high-grade specimen. Collectors also appreciate the historical connection. Lincoln has appeared on the cent since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. Holding a Lincoln penny links modern Americans with more than a century of coin collecting tradition. For many enthusiasts, the value isn't measured only in dollars. The excitement comes from learning history, studying minting technology, and searching for hidden treasures in everyday life. That is why the 2006 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny remains so fascinating. On the surface, it appears completely ordinary. Billions were made. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. Yet beneath that simple appearance lies a world of collecting, history, and possibility. Some examples achieve impressive values because of exceptional condition. Others become desirable because of genuine mint errors. And many continue to spark conversations because people misunderstand the meaning of the missing mint mark. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this penny is that appearances can be deceiving. What seems common may have a story worth telling. What looks ordinary may deserve a second glance. So the next time you receive change from a store, don't ignore those pennies. Take a closer look. Examine the date. Check the details. You never know what you might find hidden in plain sight. After all, every great coin discovery begins the same way, with someone deciding to look a little closer at a coin everyone else overlooked. And somewhere right now, a 2006 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny may be waiting to reveal a surprise to the person curious enough to notice it.